Hello and welcome to another episode of Success Personified, brought to you by CEO Apparel in conjunction with Uyasha Media. My name is Ndabenhle, and today what's different is the fact that I am joined by entrepreneurs, but it is a trio of entrepreneurs. They've started the entity which is called Pineapple Insurance. They go by the names of Matthew Smith, Ndabenhle Ngulube, as well as Marnus from Heerden. I was having trouble with their names earlier on. Thank you. I do deserve a round of applause. But you guys actually deserve the biggest round of applause because we've just come from the MTN App Awards that recently took place, and you guys went away with Best Consumer App. Now, what does that mean for you guys, and what does it mean for you guys winning Best Consumer App? Matthew, can I start with you?
Sure. It's a great achievement and we're very happy. The team was really stoked last night. For us, it's great exposure, and it also just resonates that we are doing something that's there. It's a consumer solution, and that's what we wanted it to be. The whole innovation of Pineapple is meant to change the way consumers feel about insurance, change the way insurance works. So really, that award and that particular category really speaks to what we're doing as a business.
So Ndabenhle, what does it mean when you're saying that you guys are best consumer app, or you guys have the best consumer app?
Yeah, so just to echo what Matthew was saying, so the whole sort of reason why we birthed this company was to deliver more value back to the end consumer, especially in the insurance industry, which is an industry that has traditionally been seen as an industry that you don't get much value back for what you put in. So for us to actually receive the reward Best Consumer App by MTN, it actually reinforces that we actually are doing something right and we're on the right path.
And that the consumer recognizes you as well.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Now, looking at you guys being in InsurTech, it's all about efficiency, it's all about savings. How did you guys come up with the concept of, okay, we're going to take this industry, which is so big of insurance, but we're going to make it better? Like, how do you even think about that? How do you even do that?
Yeah, so essentially the process that we followed is called design thinking. So the three of us didn't know each other at all before we started Pineapple, but we followed a process called design thinking, and in essence what that is it's a Silicon Valley based methodology where you just look at the consumer and you find out what their needs are. And this is what a lot of entrepreneurs and companies do wrong, is they think they've got this amazing idea and then they build it and then they go to the consumer. And then you have to get very lucky to have actually built something that people want. Whereas if you do it the other way around and you start with a consumer and you ask them, what do you guys want, what's wrong? And they start telling you and you start building products around that, then you've got a lot higher chance of succeeding.
Yeah. Now, how did you guys meet? How did you guys come together?
Sure. So in 2016, Hanover Reinsurance, who's the world's third largest reinsurer, they ran a global innovation competition called Journey Re. And the format was that you apply individually to this competition, and they put together two teams of 3 individuals from all the applicants in 4 different regions. So Johannesburg, Boston, Dublin, and Berlin. And we were put together as a team, and as they say, the rest is history. So we actually didn't know each other at all beforehand, but we gelled really well as a team. I think what helped is that we all had the same vision, and we aligned what we wanted out of that process. And we all have this sort of rationale of never taking things personally. So if we're debating or we're disagreeing, that's always a positive thing because it's in the best interest of getting the best solution out there. So we're all on the same track of wanting to do that.
Now, you guys are 3 co-founders, but you have a pretty small team, and for something so big, for me, it doesn't make sense how you guys have a small team. How do you guys make that work?
So the response to that is kind of twofold. The first part is that if you look at where we are currently, we've predominantly been following a very product-centric approach to getting to where we are now. So a lot of the tasks that we've had have been very sort of development related, app related, building the app, improving the app, pushing the app out, getting feedback from our users, and then making those necessary changes, and then pushing a new version of the app out. So currently our team is predominantly made up of developers, and we're able to carry out those tasks. Secondly, a lot of the tasks that we do are automated. So if you look at traditional insurance companies who have very bloated call centers, we don't need to have those sort of functions because on the app we have an in-app sort of chat interface where our customers can send us queries or questions or so forth. And because it's all automated and because it's all electronic, you find that more than one person can tend to more than one question at a time, rather than being stuck on one call with one customer. So if you combine those together, it makes it so much more easier to service a larger amount of people with a smaller team.
I love how you mentioned the aspect of your business, because that's a crucial part of your business. How did you guys even get into just the app? Like, how does the app work? How do you guys get money from the app?
So I think that also speaks to another mistake that we see a lot of entrepreneurs making is don't just build an app. The app actually has to serve a purpose. So if the app isn't solving problems, then maybe you don't need an app. Maybe you can do it some other way. But the reason why we needed an app is because the size of the insurance products we're selling are quite small. So to employ people to actually sell those products wouldn't be a profitable business model. So you have to automate it in order to make it a viable business solution. So that's where we started with, okay, we want to do this on an app. And then the process sort of evolved from there.
Just to maybe add in there, we see an app as Marnus said, it's never a solution. An app is always the delivery mechanism of a solution. So whatever is that best medium for delivering your solution, that should be it. It doesn't necessarily, I think it speaks for, I'm sure we all agree that there's a lot of apps, and oftentimes you go to places and they download our app and you're like, why do you need an app? Makes no sense. So I think it always comes back to, does it serve a purpose, and this is the delivery mechanism of your solution, and that doesn't necessarily always need to be an app.
Nanda, tell us about your guys' entity. Tell us about Pineapple Insurance. We're talking a lot about the app, we're talking a lot about what it does and how it helps you guys out, but I'm sure our viewers as well as our listeners don't fully know what Pineapple Insurance is about.
So I guess it all dates back to the competition that was mentioned earlier on that brought us together. And in essence, the whole cause of that competition was to find innovation in the insurance space and sort of harbor talent that can bring the next stage in the insurance industry. And during our time in that competition, we found various problems in the insurance industry. And the best way to sort of sum up the problem that we found is through a game theory experiment. And in this experiment, you have 10 participants and 1 facilitator. And essentially, how the experiment runs is that the facilitator tells all the participants that, listen, if you guys donate 10 Rand anonymously into a pot, and you guys all do this in one round, whatever's in the pot at the end, I'll double that, and I'll split it equally amongst all of you. So in the first round, all 10 participants each put in 10 Rand, and the total in the hat ends up being 100 Rand, which gets doubled to 200 and split back evenly amongst all 10 participants. So everybody gets 20 bucks back, making a profit of 10 Rand. And this continues for a few more rounds, up until a point where eventually somebody realizes they can actually game the system by not putting in money into the system. So only 9 people are putting in money. So the pot equals up to 90 after the first round, gets doubled up to 180, so everybody's making 18 Rand now. So the one person who didn't put any money is now making an 18 Rand profit, but everybody else who put in money is only making an 8 Rand profit. And eventually everybody else catches on to this until it gets to a point where only one person is putting in money. So this kind of demonstrates how a system that's meant to be beneficial for a large group of people can quickly fall into disrepute if not everybody in that whole system acts in a manner that's beneficial for everybody else. And it kind of goes back to the roots of insurance, where in the 1800s, insurance started with a bunch of sailors who literally sat around the coffee table and wrote on a piece of paper each of their names, as well as the items that they stand to lose on the voyages that they wanted to embark on. And this is actually where the term underwriting comes from, because they all wrote their names underneath each other, and they were all aware of each other, as well as the risks that they were sharing amongst each other. But then as the Industrial Revolution came about, it became impossible for everybody to know each other in an insurance company, so that was lost. But now with technology, it's possible for everybody who is a policyholder in an insurance company to know each other. So essentially in Pineapple, what we're saying is, once you insure something, and we'll touch on how you can actually insure something on Pineapple, but the point is, the whole concept of Pineapple is once you insure something and you start paying your premiums, rather than your premiums going into a centralized pot, similar to how traditional insurance happens, where your premiums go into a centralized pot, your premiums go into your own in-app Pineapple wallet. And as a claim happens in the system, your wallet helps to pay for that claim at the beginning of once you join Pineapple. But what we allow you to do on the app is find your friends and sort of build your own friendship network.
Yeah.
So much so that eventually your wallet stops being affected by the claims of people who you don't know, and only by the claims of your friends. And whatever's left in your wallet after 12 months, you get to withdraw in cash. So it's essentially delivering more value back to the end user.
Now, it sounds great. It really does sound amazing. But I have like one thought in my head, and that is, how do you eventually end up making a profit? How do you gain from all of this?
So maybe just to touch on that. So in that system, there's a fee which is drawn from your wallet. And that fee covers us running Pineapple, but what it covers, which is a lot more important than that, is that we still needed to provide comprehensive, full insurance cover, because when something bad happens, you can't have a case where, sorry guys, there's not enough money in the system, we can't pay your claim. We needed to make sure that all valid claims could always be paid, because that's the promise that traditional insurance gives you, and that's what's so valuable, even though there's so many other problems with traditional insurance. So that was the core of what we did. And so a fee from the wallet goes towards paying what we call a reinsurance fee, to make sure that whenever there's not enough money in the system, an external reinsurer who underwrites the product, so currently it's Compass Insurance, they will fund that deficit. And their remuneration is that small 15% fee.
Okay, I hear you. Now, let's talk about the fact that your app only actually went live 2 months ago, am I right? But somehow, on your social media currently, on Instagram in particular, you guys have around about 37,000 followers. Now, how do you get that much traction? How do you get people to know about your app, like, without even it being, out there?
So in essence, the strategy that we follow is just sharing our journey. So what we found is people are actually very interested in, if you are going to be genuine about your story and not try and push product down their throats, people are actually interested to see what the entrepreneurship journey looks like. And I think another thing that we actually learned is a lot of companies, when they create social media accounts, all of a sudden it becomes very formal, and they become too scared to interact with the people. In essence, it's people on the other side, not customers.
Yeah.
And actually interact with them. If you like someone's profile, follow them, interact with them, send them messages. If you like their post, comment on it, like their stuff as well.
Yeah.
They expect their social accounts to be this big receiving thing that just sits back and pushes stuff out, where we've taken the approach of actually saying we are part of this social community, so let's interact with everyone else as well.
And I know a lot of entrepreneurs really want their business social media accounts to grow, and I love what Marnus just said. It's all about interaction. It's a community, and your community wants you to see that you're visible and active. Love that. And you guys also talked about how usually sometimes when we think business, we think, stuck up, collar, and just looking at your business and working environment, it's actually so chilled and so relaxed. What's the importance in having that environment for you guys?
Yeah, well, I guess, just to add on to what Mona says, at the end of the day, it's people that run an organization. The business, doesn't run itself, it's run by people.
Yeah.
So essentially it's about creating a culture where people can actually be themselves, because if you actually look at corporate, what tends to happen is you have a bunch of people working in these closed off boxes where, you only see the people who are immediately around you. And you could be working in the same company as somebody else for 2 years, but you only bump into them when you're walking towards the bathroom or, when you're at the canteen. But if you break down all those walls and you give people an environment where they can actually be themselves and express themselves truly, that's when you actually get the best out of people. Because once you can do that, people are no longer operating out of a place of fear or anxiety. It's from a place of love and comfort, and that's when you can actually get the creativity flowing from people that you work with. And that's how you can start, getting things such as collaboration and synergies happening in the workspace.
Okay. And then lastly, just to wrap up, it's amazing how this started. It's amazing how you guys met in a competition, etc. But how do you get the capital to start, all of this, the realities of starting up your own entity?
I think fundraising, especially in the South African ecosystem, there isn't an excessively healthy appetite to take on early stage risk, especially when it's conceptual. So that was a challenge for us. We were fortunate enough to have partners who really believed in what we were doing. So I'd say we were probably more fortunate than most in that circumstance. So what we have learned is a lot of lessons in how you go about pitching. I'll just maybe to share a few lessons and we'll share a few, is for us what we found very valuable is to always focus on the solution, on the problem, before you focus on the solution. So always make sure that your audience, whoever you're pitching to for investment, is aware of what it is that you are actually trying to address. Before you go into the nitty-gritties of how it works, or the business model, or the revenues, or anything like that, what is the problem and how can you address it? And if that's a problem that resonates with your audience, then you've already captured their attention. Because I think the difficult thing is there's not a lot of VCs in South Africa. It's a very small ecosystem, but there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit and a lot of ideas floating around.
Yeah. Anything to add on?
Yeah, well, I guess where I can add the best advice is, when actually rolling out an app. So a lot of people who want to start their own businesses these days always come forward and say, okay, listen, I've got this idea for an app and so forth. But it's important to know that, sometimes you need to ask yourself, is an app really the way to go in terms of rolling out this idea or getting this idea out to market as quick as possible so that I can actually test this thing out? And I tend to find from a lot of new entrepreneurs that they think they should have this, bloated and, a lot of feature-based apps just to, get the idea out there. They want the whole complete package up front before they can take it out to market. And what I say to them is, listen, guys, think about the minimum value that you want to deliver with this idea, and try build something that can deliver that value as soon as possible. It might not even be an app. It might be Excel based. It might be Gmail based. Something that you can actually whip up overnight just to actually test that the fundamentals of your idea can actually work. And once you get that feedback, then start looking into building an application. So I'd say that would be my advice for people who want to start a business. Try find a cheap and quick way to prove your concept, and then if you can actually get that proof of concept in the market, and you can actually get feedback from people that they actually want that in the market, then you can investigate rolling out a fully fledged app.
Marnus, do you have anything to add on, or did they cover you?
No, I would just maybe to add to that, so it ties into the MVP approach, and that's actually get going yourself. Don't wait for the investment to start doing something. Put your own money in. People like to see you taking risk in the business as well. So start building the thing yourself and then look for investment. Don't do it the other way around, because I don't think there's any investor in South Africa that will invest based just on a concept if you haven't started implementing it yet. And the second piece of advice I would give is don't go it alone. So if you don't have the skill set, find someone who has that skill set. So find a software developer, find someone who understands the core business, find the skills you need, and be willing to give some of the company away to that person. Because if you're going to try and do it alone, then you're going to have to pay for those services. And if you don't have funding, then you can't pay for those services. Yeah. So I think the South African solution would be to try and build a team by giving some of the business away, and then get it to a point where you've got some customers and almost anecdotal evidence that people want this, and then go and look for funding.
That's amazing.
Just to speak to Marnus's last point there of don't go it alone, we found that incredibly valuable, because the entrepreneurial journey, it might look glamorous from the outside, but there's a lot of ups and downs. It's extremely wavy.
Yeah.
You go through very high highs and very low lows.
Yeah.
And to have a team to sort of pick you up when you're low and vice versa, that's extremely valuable.
Maybe just to give some advice to anyone out there. So you always read in the newspaper or whatever when someone has got investment, but the story you don't hear is like the three of us driving from a potential investor meeting after being rejected. And no one says a word for 30 minutes. So you don't read about the 30 meetings that we went to not getting investment. You read about the one where we did get it. So I think having a team there that can pick each other up is super important.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Marnus. Like, you just closed that off for me. That's the closing. Like stop. But thank you so much, guys, for speaking with us. We definitely did learn a lot from you guys. And the one thing I'm going to take away from this is, in order to get yourself to a position like this, where you have the best consumer app, then it's a lot of planning, it's a lot of conceptualizing, because these guys spent like 2 years doing that, and their app has only been up for like 2 months. So plan, and also have a great team behind you. That's it for our CEO podcast as well as video. We are back next week again, but from me and the Pineapple Insurance Gurus, I'm out.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.